The news that E3 is dead, never to return, is very disappointing indeed, as I always found it to be one of the most exciting times of the year. Still, it's nice to remember all the good times, so here are my 10 favourite E3 moments, starting with the most recent and working backwards. We'll begin with a nice positive one, Cyberpunk 2077's appearance during Microsoft's 2019 conference. The trailer to kick things off, the reveal Keanu Reeves would be playing Johnny Silverhand at its conclusion, and his subsequent appearance on stage, it met my expectations and then some. Of course, we all know what happened later, but right up to the game's launch, I was beside myself with excitement, in large part thanks to Cyberpunk's E3 spectacular. It also gave us this extraordinarily wholesome moment.
Okay, but let me tell you, the feeling of being there, of walking the streets of the future, is really going to be breathtaking. You're breathtaking. You're breathtaking. You're all breathtaking.
Sony's 2015 conference was, in my view, probably the best in E3's history. Rumours of some very special announcements had started to fly around on the internet in the hours leading up to it, but I, like many others I'm sure, thought they sounded a little too good to be true. As it turned out, every single one of them was bang on the money. The first big surprise was The Last Guardian's presence, Team Ico's long-awaited release, which many thought would never see the light of day. Soon after came the megaton, the reveal of Final Fantasy VII's remake, a jaw-dropping announcement I simply could not believe was actually happening.
Now, many years ago, Square Enix released a groundbreaking title that went on to become one of the most beloved games in PlayStation and video game history. Tonight, I am proud to announce that by popular demand, we have a very special treat for everyone.
And to round things out, Shenmue 3 made its debut after the series' 14-year absence. Even one of those games being featured would have been amazing enough, so for all three to appear really was something special. A lot of people were quite concerned about Microsoft's new Xbox One in the weeks leading up to 2013's E3. Their focus on it being an all-round entertainment product as much as a games console, it needing to authenticate online every 24 hours, and the possibility of users not being able to share games had left a sour taste for many. Xbox One's showing during Microsoft's conference was actually fairly decent, with a good number of games shown and a price of $499 revealed. It wasn't enough, however, as Sony went on the offensive during their PlayStation 4-focused conference after, and I think it's fair to say that by the end of it, a few nails had already been hammered into the Xbox One's coffin. Sony's messaging was clear and concise. Users would be able to share their games.
For instance, PlayStation 4 won't impose any new restrictions on the use of PS4 gamers.
The PlayStation 4 wouldn't need to regularly go online.
If you enjoy playing single-player games offline, PS4 won't require you to check in online periodically.
And it would be a whole $100 cheaper than the Xbox One. It was a conference for the ages, one which helped ensure the competition between Sony and Microsoft was almost over before it had really even started. While Nintendo's Wii wasn't really my bag, to this day I'm not overly fond of motion controls, I remained fascinated by all the different ways developers were using it. Say what you want about the Wii, innovative, experimental, or downright bananas ideas for games were not in short supply. Wii Music is definitely one which fits best into the downright bananas category, and I cannot imagine a world where I stopped finding its onstage demo at 2008's E3 absolutely hilarious. It's undoubtedly one of the most bizarre and anticlimactic things I've ever seen.
All right, bring the house down, guys.
I was an avid PlayStation fan up until I played Halo Combat Evolved on the Xbox, at which point I immediately decided I needed to own Microsoft's first console as well. For a first attempt in a very competitive market, it was an impressive showing, especially with the PlayStation 2 being such a runaway success. I was fortunate enough to get my hands on an Xbox 360 a few months after its launch, and while I absolutely loved it, I did have a few worries. Namely, I wasn't sure developers outside the West were going to take it seriously, which would have potentially meant several massive franchises never seeing the light of day on Microsoft's new console. So the announcement at E3 2008 that Final Fantasy XIII would mark the series' debut on Xbox was massive. Not only was it entirely unexpected, but it really drove home just how big a threat the 360 was going to be to Sony's dominance.
And it gives me great pleasure to be able to unveil this to you today. An Xbox 360 version of Final Fantasy XIII, the latest in the Final Fantasy series, which has seen more than 85 million units shipped worldwide, is planned for release.
What a shame it is that the game didn't actually turn out to be all that great. Sony's conference at 2006's E3 was absolutely bonkers. There were loads of great games on show, Metal Gear Solid 4, Resistance, Uncharted and Final Fantasy XIII to name but a few, but that's not why I love it. I love it because of this.
Game is powered by Namco. It's Ridge Racer. Ridge Racer! Remember that one?
And I love it because of this.
The stages of the game will also be based on famous battles which actually took place in ancient Japan. So here's this giant enemy crab.
Sony capping things off by announcing the PlayStation 3 would be $499 or $599 depending on the model you chose also made me laugh, but not at all in the same way. I didn't think much of Twilight Princess as an actual game, but it's hard to deny that its reveal at 2004's E3 was awesome. The series' previous entry, Wind Waker, is one of my favourites, but many were disappointed by it due to its cartoony aesthetic, which by the by has aged wonderfully. Space World 2000's Zelda tech demo meant most were expecting Link's first GameCube adventure to have a more conventional look, so I do understand where a lot of that frustration came from. Finally, in 2004, Zelda fans got what they'd been waiting for. The Twilight Princess trailer was exactly what most had been hoping for, and the crowd went wild, especially after series creator and industry legend Shigeru Miyamoto appeared on stage wielding Link's trademark sword and shield.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Shigeru Miyamoto.
Regular viewers of my channel likely suspected this one would get a mention sooner or later, as there's no way I can talk about E3 without mentioning 2003's glorious Halo 2 gameplay demo. Halo Combat Evolved had already cemented itself as an all-time classic that was leaps and bounds above every other console shooter, and many were left wondering how Bungie could possibly top it. They appeared to do so in every conceivable way. Halo 2's trailer, set on Earth, which was exciting enough in and of itself, had everything from dual wielding and brand new weapons to Marines being able to drive warthogs and vehicle hijacking. Unfortunately, while Halo 2 still ended up being a fantastic game, Bungie never managed to deliver on what we saw at E3. There are dedicated modders presently working on recreating it though, so perhaps one day we'll finally get to give it a go.
Bet you can't stick it.
You're on.
Along with Halo 2's gameplay demo, the only other time I'd describe myself as being completely and utterly blown away by something I'd seen at E3 was thanks to a trailer at its 2000 show. The name of that game was Metal Gear Solid 2, and I genuinely couldn't believe what I was seeing. Seriously, I must have watched that 9-minute or so long trailer about 30 times. Also, here's a fun fact. All of those watches were from a copy of it on video cassette that came with the very first issue of PSM2 magazine, as basically no one owned a DVD player yet. 1995 was a big year for console gaming, with the transition from 2D to 3D well and truly underway. The Sega Saturn and PlayStation had already launched in Japan, but hadn't yet in North America or Europe, which meant making a good impression at E3 was extremely important. On the 11th of May, Sega shockingly announced at their conference that the Saturn would be available immediately, priced at $399. Then, at Sony's conference, head of development Steve Race did this.
$299.
It remains to this day perhaps the most baller moment E3 has ever played host to, and it is, I think, the most fitting way to end this video. Thanks very much for watching, boys, girls and E3 mourners. If you had a conventionally good time, do consider liking, subscribing and sharing your favourite E3 moments, and all's well, we'll meet again soon.